If you are a senior planning to travel in February 2026 or beyond, you may have seen scary headlines about new passport rules and travel restrictions. Social media is full of posts claiming seniors now face extra screening, mandatory medical documents, or special requirements that could prevent you from traveling. Some of these posts even suggest that your valid passport might not be enough anymore. Before you panic or cancel your travel plans, take a deep breath because we are going to separate the facts from the rumors and explain exactly what is actually changing and what is not. Welcome to Immigration Law Station, where we cut through the noise and give you calm, fact-based immigration information without the panic and without the rumors. This channel exists to help you understand immigration and travel rules the way they actually work, not the way social media wants you to believe they work. Today, we are going to walk through the real passport and travel changes happening in February 2026, explain who is actually affected, clear up the most common rumors that are causing unnecessary stress, and help you understand what you need to do to prepare. Let me start by being very clear about something. There are no new passport requirements specifically targeting seniors in February 2026. Let me say that again. There are no special passport rules, no extra restrictions, no mandatory medical screenings, and no additional documentation requirements that apply only to people over age 65. The rules that apply to you are the same rules that apply to all adult travelers. What is happening is that several travel-related changes are taking effect around this time. And unfortunately, some content creators and social media accounts have twisted these facts into scary clickbait headlines that specifically mention seniors to get more views. This is causing real confusion and real stress for travelers who just want accurate information. So, let's talk about what is actually changing. The biggest change taking effect on February 1, 2026 involves something called Real ID and how it affects domestic air travel within the United States. This is not a passport rule and it does not affect international travel at all, but it is causing confusion because it involves identification requirements. Here is what you need to know. Starting February 1, the Transportation Security Administration, known as TSA, will begin charging a $45 fee to travelers who show up at airport security checkpoints without a Real ID-compliant license or an acceptable alternative form of identification. This fee is called the TSA Confirm ID fee. Now, before you worry, let's be clear about what this means and who it affects. Real ID became mandatory for domestic flights back in May 2025. That deadline already passed. What changed in May was that if you wanted to board a domestic flight within the United States, you needed to present either a Real ID-compliant driver's license or state ID card, or an acceptable alternative like a valid United States passport, a passport card, a military ID, or certain other federally approved forms of identification. Between May 2025 and January 31, 2026, travelers who showed up without proper ID went through additional screening but were not charged a fee. Starting February 1, that changes. If you show up without a Real ID or acceptable alternative, you will now be required to pay $45 to use the TSA Confirm ID system, which is an alternative identity verification process. This fee covers a 10-day travel period. Here is the key point. This rule applies to all travelers age 18 and older. It is not a senior rule. It is not targeting older adults. It is not about passports for international travel. It is about domestic air travel within the United States and the type of identification you present at the TSA checkpoint. If you already have a Real ID-compliant license, which has a star symbol in the upper corner, you are all set and this does not affect you. If you use your valid United States passport for domestic travel, you are all set and this does not affect you. The fee only applies if you show up without one of these acceptable forms of ID. Now, let's talk about passports and international travel because this is where a lot of confusion exists. Your United States passport itself has not changed. The requirements to obtain a United States passport have not changed for February 2026. The application process, the fees, the documentation you need to provide, and the validity period of 10 years for adult passports, all of this remains the same. However, there is a rule that catches many travelers off guard, and it has been causing problems for years. It is called the 6-month passport validity rule. And while it is not new, it is something every international traveler needs to understand. Many countries around the world require that your passport be valid for at least 6 months beyond your travel dates. Some countries calculate this from your arrival date, while others calculate it from your departure date. This means that even if your passport is technically still valid according to the expiration date printed inside, You can be denied boarding by the airline or denied entry by immigration officials if your passport does not meet the 6-month rule for that specific country. This rule exists to prevent situations where travelers' passports expire while they are abroad, which creates complicated legal and logistical problems. Here is a real-world example to help you understand. Let's say you are planning a trip to Thailand in March 2026 and your passport expires in August 2026. You look at your passport and think, great, I have 5 months of validity left. I should be fine. But Thailand enforces the 6-month rule from your arrival date. When you try to check in for your flight, the airline will see that your passport does not meet Thailand's requirement because you need validity until September 2026 and you only have it until August. You will be denied boarding. It does not matter that your passport is still technically valid. It does not meet the destination country's rule. Countries that commonly enforce the 6-month rule include Thailand, China, Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia, Vietnam, and many countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America. Countries in Europe, specifically those in the Schengen area, typically require 3 months of validity beyond your departure date, which is less strict but still important to check. Some countries, like Canada and Mexico, only require that your passport be valid for the duration of your stay, but it is always safer to have more validity just in case your travel plans change. This 6-month rule is not new. It has existed for decades. It did not start in February 2026 and it is not a United States government rule. It is enforced by foreign governments and checked by airlines before you even leave the United States. The reason it is coming up more now is simply because more people are traveling again after pandemic-related slowdowns. And more travelers are getting caught off guard by this long-standing rule. If your passport expires in 2026 or early 2027 and you have international travel plans, check the specific requirements for every country on your itinerary. Not just your final destination, but any country where you have a layover or connection. If your passport does not meet the requirements, start the renewal process now. Speaking of passport renewal, let's talk about processing times because this is another area causing stress. Current processing times from the State Department are 4 to 6 weeks for routine service and 2 to 3 weeks for expedited service, which costs an extra $60. These are the times your application spends at a passport agency, but you also need to account for mailing time. It can take up to 2 weeks for your application to reach the passport agency and another 2 weeks for you to receive your new passport after it is printed. This means routine service could take up to 10 weeks total from the day you mail your application to the day you receive your new passport. Expedited service could take up to 7 weeks total. If you have urgent international travel in less than 3 weeks, you can make an appointment at a passport agency or center. But these appointments are limited and you must show proof of your imminent travel. The bottom line is this. If you are planning international travel in the next 6 months and your passport is close to expiring, do not wait. Start your renewal now. Passport agencies are busy and waiting until the last minute almost always causes unnecessary stress and could result in missed trips. Now, let's address some of the most common rumors and false claims circulating online about senior travel requirements. One rumor claims that travelers over age 65 now need to provide detailed medical documentation at airports, including information about pacemakers, implanted medical devices, or prescription medications. This is completely false. There are no new medical documentation requirements for seniors traveling domestically or internationally. The TSA does have a program called TSA Cares which provides assistance for travelers with disabilities or medical conditions who might need extra help at the checkpoint, but this is a voluntary service, not a requirement. You are never required to provide medical records or detailed health information to board a flight. If you have a medical device like a pacemaker, you can request a pat-down instead of going through the body scanner. And TSA officers are trained to handle these situations discreetly and respectfully. But again, this is not new and it is not specific to seniors. Another rumor claims that seniors over age 70 or 75 face additional screening, longer wait times, or stricter identity verification at airports. Also false. TSA screening procedures are the same for all adult passengers. There is a program for travelers aged 75 and older that actually makes screening easier, not harder. TSA allows travelers 75 and older to leave on light jackets and shoes during screening, which reduces the physical demands of the process, but there are no additional restrictions or requirements for older travelers. A third rumor involves claims that seniors must now prove their fitness to travel or undergo health assessments before international trips. Again, completely false. Airlines do not require medical clearance based on age alone. If you have a specific medical condition that might affect your ability to fly safely, such as needing supplemental oxygen or traveling shortly after surgery, your doctor may need to provide a medical clearance form to the airline. But this applies to travelers of any age with medical concerns, not just seniors. It is based on your medical situation, not your birth date. Some posts have also claimed that seniors need special visas or extra documentation for countries that previously did not require visas for United States passport holders. This is misleading. What is true is that the European Union is implementing a new system called ETS, which stands for European Travel Information and Authorization System, and a separate system called EES, the Entry-Exit System. These systems will require United States travelers to provide some information and pay a small fee before visiting countries in the Schengen area, but these requirements apply to all United States passport holders, regardless of age. It is not a senior requirement. It is a new travel authorization similar to what travelers already do when visiting countries like Canada with the ETA system or Australia with the ETA system. When EDS launches, which is expected later in 2026, all United States citizens traveling to Schengen countries for short stays will need to apply online, answer some basic questions, and pay a fee of around €7. The authorization will be valid for 3 years or until your passport expires. This is not complicated, and it is definitely not targeting seniors. Let's also address the claim that passport renewal is harder or more expensive for seniors. Not true. The fees are exactly the same regardless of age. An adult passport book costs $130 for the application fee. If you are renewing by mail using Form DS-82, there is no execution fee. If you are applying in person using Form DS-11, you pay an execution fee of $35 to the acceptance facility in addition to the $130 application fee. These fees do not change based on your age. Seniors do not pay more. In fact, if you are age 62 or older, you may qualify for discounted or free state-issued identification cards in some states, which can serve as an alternative to using your driver's license. But this is a state-level benefit, not a federal passport fee reduction. Now, let's talk about what you should actually do to prepare for travel in 2026 and beyond. First, check your passport expiration date right now. Do not wait until you are booking a trip. Look at the expiration date and write it down. If your passport expires within the next 12 months, start planning for renewal. If it expires within the next 6 months and you have any possibility of international travel, renew it now. Do not wait until you have specific plans because processing times can be longer than expected and you do not want to be in a position where you have to pay for emergency expedited service or miss a trip. Second, if you plan to fly domestically within the United States and you do not have a real ID yet, decide whether you want to get one or whether you will use your passport as your travel identification. If you plan to get a real ID, visit your state DMV website to see what documents you need to bring. Most states require proof of identity, such as a birth certificate or current passport, proof of social security number, and 2 proofs of residency, like utility bills or bank statements. Make an appointment if your DMV requires one, and bring all required documents in their original form, not photocopies. If you already carry your passport when you travel domestically, you do not need a real ID at all because your passport is an acceptable alternative. Third, if you are planning international travel, research the entry requirements for your destination well in advance. Do not rely on social media posts or travel blogs that might be outdated. Go directly to official government sources. For United States passport holders, the State Department's website at travel.state.gov governor has a section called International Travel where you can look up every country and see their entry requirements including passport validity rules, visa requirements, and any health or vaccination requirements. You can also check the website of the embassy or consulate of the country you plan to visit. These are the only sources you should trust for entry requirements. Fourth, if you are age 65 or older and planning international travel, take a few extra steps to prepare, even though none of these are legal requirements. Enroll in the State Department's Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, called STEP. This is a free service where you register your trip and contact information so the United States Embassy or consulate in your destination country can reach you in case of emergency. Leave copies of your passport, itinerary, and emergency contact information with family or friends at home. Make sure your health insurance covers you abroad because Medicare does not cover medical expenses outside the United States. Consider purchasing travel insurance that includes emergency medical evacuation coverage. Carry a list of your medications with generic names in case you need medical care abroad. These are smart travel practices for any older adult traveling internationally, but they are recommendations, not requirements. Fifth, stay informed by following official sources, not social media rumors. The State Department, USCIS, and TSA all have official websites and social media accounts where they post accurate, timely information about travel and immigration changes. If you see a headline that sounds extreme or shocking, pause before believing it and look for confirmation from an official source. If you cannot find confirmation, it is probably not true. Let me also say this. Immigration and travel rules rarely change overnight. The United States government does not wake up one morning and decide to implement brand new passport requirements or age-based travel restrictions without months or years of advanced notice, public comment periods and extensive communication. When real changes happen, they are announced through official channels covered by legitimate news organizations and implemented gradually with clear timelines. If the only place you are seeing a claim is on TikTok, Instagram or YouTube, be very skeptical. Major immigration changes do not debut on social media before appearing on government websites. Now, I want to address the emotional side of all this confusion and misinformation. If you are a senior who loves to travel or who has been planning a trip to visit family or fulfill a lifelong dream and you saw one of these scary posts about new restrictions, I understand why you might have felt anxious or frustrated. It is deeply unfair when content creators spread false information that causes real people real stress. You should not have to sort through rumors and clickbait, just to understand whether you can visit your grandchildren or take a vacation. That is why channels like Immigration Law Station exist. Our entire purpose is to give you clear, calm, fact-based information so you can make informed decisions without the fear-mongering. Traveling as a senior can come with legitimate concerns. You might worry about mobility challenges, managing medications abroad, or dealing with unexpected health issues far from home. These are reasonable concerns and there are resources and services designed to help. But those real concerns should not be made worse by fake restrictions and manufactured panic. You deserve accurate information delivered respectfully. You deserve to understand the actual rules without being manipulated by people trying to get views and clicks. So, here is the summary of everything we have covered today. Starting February 1, 2026, the TSA will charge a $45 fee to travelers who do not have a real ID-compliant license or acceptable alternative ID for domestic flights within the United States. This applies to all adult travelers, not just seniors. If you have a real ID or you travel with your passport, this does not affect you at all. There are no new passport requirements specifically for seniors. The application process, fees, and validity periods for United States passports have not changed. The 6-month passport validity rule enforced by many foreign countries is not new and has existed for decades. If you plan international travel, check your passport expiration date and the specific entry requirements for your destination country well in advance. There are no new medical documentation requirements, no mandatory health screenings, and no age-based travel restrictions for seniors. Do not believe social media posts claiming otherwise unless you can verify the information through official government sources. If you fly domestically, make sure you have either a real ID-compliant license or an acceptable alternative like a passport to avoid the $45 TSA fee. If you travel internationally, make sure your passport has enough validity to meet the requirements of every country you plan to visit, not just your final destination. Renew your passport now if it expires within the next year and you think you might travel. Processing times can be longer than expected, and waiting until the last minute creates unnecessary stress. Remember that immigration and travel rules rarely change overnight. And when they do change, official government agencies provide clear communication and advanced notice. Social media posts with shocking headlines are designed to get your attention, not to give you accurate information. Always verify claims through official sources like the State Department, TSA, and USCIS before believing them or changing your plans. Travel should be exciting, not stressful. You should be able to focus on your destination, your itinerary, and the people you will see, not on whether some random social media post is telling the truth. By understanding the real rules and knowing where to find accurate information, you can travel confidently and avoid falling for the rumors and misinformation that unfortunately fill the internet. If this video helped you understand what is actually changing in February 2026 and what is just rumor and panic, please subscribe to Immigration Law Station and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. This channel is dedicated to cutting through the noise and giving you calm, fact-based immigration and travel information. If you know another senior who has been worried about these rumors, please share this video with them so they can get the real facts. And if you have questions about immigration, travel, or documentation requirements, leave a comment below. We read every comment, and we use your questions to create future videos that address the topics you actually care about. Thank you for watching Immigration Law Station. Travel safe, stay informed, and remember that accurate information is always better than panic and rumors.